India knows they're not the best and the brightest. And India makes more money, here's their play, by having people come work in the United States through this entire sort of Ponzi scheme that they run and sending money back to India. That's a better play than them actually creating a livable country for their own people. They have no intentions of doing that. Well, here's one we can all agree on.
That's going to piss us off even more.
India sucks. And here's the thing. I know that often we'll get a lot of views in India if I talk about Modi or someone who's done something relatively well there because they sort of have been presenting as an ally. Well, it turns out that that was largely fraudulent. And on a personal level, as far as immigrant groups, Indian Americans are among my least favorite.
Yeah.
Just as far as the culture, as far as assimilation, as far as the leering, as far as full-grown men holding hands, I think it's weird, and it's just not really my jam. But if you come here and you're America first, okay, I understand that. However, India has been playing both sides on this one. So you've probably heard this quite a bit, and you hear it increasingly from people in tech, which is kind of worrisome, that India is the future, despite the fact that half their civilization lives in actual poop. They're the future.
I thought you were saying the past.
Yeah. They're a great ally, and they're certainly our next greatest, most significant ally. You've heard all this.
And I really believe that the future of the 21st century is going to be determined by the strength of the United States-India partnership.
I'm pleased to report that with today's announcements, the friendship between the United States and India is the strongest I believe it's ever been. I think our relationship is the best it's ever been between two leaders of the two countries. I tell you, we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and it'll make both countries much stronger.
The president thinks America first, but he does not think America only or America exclusively. He's going to take care of his allies. He's going to make sure he takes care of India, who he deeply, deeply admires and respects.
The future of American innovation, the key driver of our economy, will depend on our immigration policies with India.
But what if I told you that all of that was based on a lie? And India, as a nation, as a government, and by the way, as a people, by and large, has been dishonest. They've been dishonest economically. They've betrayed us by engaging in trade and business with our enemies. And they're doing so while telling us that, no, we are friends. We are your best friend. And none of it is true. This brings us to this week's Eye on India.
What's that smell?
All right, so let me give you the what references available. So last week, Trump announced he would hit India with a 25% tariff. Okay?
Good.
Now, let me give you the why and a follow-up. Monday, President Trump announced even tougher measures, potentially greater tariffs. And he explained on Truth. He said, India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchased, selling it in the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the USA. Better than India, some people say. By some, I mean everyone. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. And it's true. By the way, 2 people die by train every hour in India. I just think that's an interesting fact when people say all cultures are the same. Yes! Trains kill 2 people in India each hour. Wow. Think about that. Animals avoid giant, loud, screaming metal objects. It's on a track. You have to go to it.
Yeah, it's on. It can't go anywhere else. It can't.
These aren't derailments.
And I'm not saying it's the only thing wrong with India. It's just a big one. It's just one where it's like, it's 2025 there too. How are you people getting killed by And it's just because it's an entirely different culture. It's true, they've been engaging in trade with our enemies while trying to take advantage of Americans, while trying to take advantage not only of Americans themselves, but American businesses. And I'm talking about the scam deals that happen there. I don't know how almost all of the telemarketing scams that rob old people of their Social Security checks comes from one country, which would seem like it's not a very empathetic people, which would seem like maybe there's some kind of a moral vacuum in India. Seems like Hinduism isn't filling that. Also, American businesses are being exploited, and our government is being exploited. At the same time, they're doing a lot of stuff behind our back. For example, acting as a loophole for China to avoid tariffs and buying Russian oil. Basically, India is taking advantage of the United States gleefully, and President Trump's the only one doing anything about it. It's fine because he lived.
Yeah.
He was not one of the 2 people per hour. By the way, there's a study that shows in some regions 50% of the train deaths are from selfie videos.
What?
So if 2 people die by train every hour, that guy, not one of them. How many people are injured by train, Brian?
Exactly.
Oh, that's true.
And how many of them gang rape water monitor lizards?
At least 4.
Well, how
All
is the lizard
cultures
dressed?
are the same. If an American wanted to gang rape a water monitor lizard, I'm just using this as an example to show you that cultures are different. If an American wanted to gang rape a water monitor lizard, this happened in India, by the way, there would be multiple steps that, frankly, would probably act as a barrier to entry. First off, you'd have to find a group large enough of other people who, too, wanted to gang rape a water monitor lizard.
Yeah, what's that group chat look like?
Yeah, it must be pretty tough. You don't want that signal leaked. And then they would have to, of course, if they assume you find a posse of water monitor lizard rape enthusiasts large enough, you would then have to find a water monitor lizard. And you would then have to make sure that you could get this water monitor lizard isolated, because any witness in the United States would, of course, say, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. They didn't even have to do that in India. They pretty much did it in plain view. 8 people said, do you want to rape the lizard? And 7 other people said, yes.
I don't think.
And they just did it. They just went to town in front of people like, that's right, let's put our back into it. It's just not the same kind of a culture. It's something that when anyone says they eat, pray, love, and India is a very spiritual place, you know that person has lived an asshole's life, because it is devoid of any spiritual, moral ethics whatsoever. And you know what? Let's be honest. A lot of their food is overrated crap. Let me go through this economically and as far as governments, as far as businesses, and as far as you, just the average American citizen, how you are screwed on this raw deal by India playing like they are an ally. So some key facts for you. Key fact number 1. It's true. India is buying a massive amount of Russian oil.
Yeah.
Let's personalize this. Your best friend, you find out, is supporting your worst enemy. Your best friend is buying meals and, I don't know, making a down payment on the house of the guy who your wife cheated on you with, right? Like, hey, India, you're a friend. No, you're not a friend. Why? Because you're buying huge amounts of oil from someone who is not an ally. And the left should be on board with this, because they hate Russia more than anything. So to give you an idea, 0.2% in pre-invasion, India, of crude imports came from Russia. Now that's 40 to 50%.
Look at that frickin' graph.
Of India's crude imports, they're coming from Russia. That's $50 billion in new annual income for Russia. And by the way, even some of that crude, it comes through some U.S. sanctioned. They've already been sanctioned tankers, to be clear. So it's not like this isn't on our radar, to be clear. They know what they're doing. They could be engaging in trade honestly with the United States. They're not. They're supporting an enemy. And for Donald Trump, and this is the thing, someone who believes in peace through strength, but he wants to pull economic levers before we ever have to send troops into Russia. That becomes really hard to do if you're getting undercut by your supposed greatest ally. Think about that. In other words, you can't squeeze Russia. If India decides, oh no, we'll pick up the slack, to the tune of 50% of our crude imports. And by the way, you can't trust those Russians any further than you can throw them, as seen here. I am trained. Two die by trains per hour.
Per hour.
Per hour.
It's their natural predator.
And half of the world's open defecation takes place in India. They had to start a campaign. We'll get to it, but
Oh, please tell me.
I'm sorry. That
Commercial
means there's something inherently different. There's something inherently different. Oh, wait a second. If in 2025 your government needs to tell you to not poop wherever it falls, I'm sorry. The chances at assimilation are looking quite slim. So here's the other thing. Not just oil, weapons. Russia is India's single largest supplier of weapons, of arms.
Great.
Think about that for a second. They want to act like they're our ally, a pick-me nation, India. Hey, how about you get your weapons from us?
Yeah, and how about
you get your energy from us?
you go.
Not only would that be better for Americans, if you're our friends, it would be better for you.
You know what they said? They said that after the invasion of Ukraine, that there was supply constraints, and they had to start buying their oil from Russia. So you're telling me that you went from what was it, like 0.2% or something like that, almost nothing, to 50%?
Yeah.
Because they said Europe was buying more? Are you serious?
How much you want to bet Russia cut a sweetheart deal?
Of course, they needed money. They were doing that with China. They were. I don't know why Europe was still buying their stuff. And then India, somebody who's supposed to be a partner of ours? Come on.
Are we starting to realize that the rest of the world they're not really our friends? When they're like, actually, we're great allies. Really, what have you done for us? What have you done for us?
yourself? Without just what a friend would do. Not something that's in your own best interest, because we all do that.
Sure. But,
just out of the goodness of your heart.
But how do you benefit the United States? We know how you harm the United States. India, I'm looking at you, which brings us to key fact number 2. That India, when we're talking about the immigration issue, the border is a big deal. And then India is a very close second. They flood the United States with cheap labor, and it's by design. It's by design to displace you and take your jobs. That's a real thing. People go, they took our jobs, the libertarians don't know. They're doing it by design with the assistance of the government. So Indian IT firms, just to give you an idea, they've spent millions lobbying Congress on H-1B visas. And by the way, they are the single largest recipient of remittance in the world. Let me give you an example. NASSCOM, which represents India's largest tech companies. So in 2018, there was a former Michigan GOP governor, John Engler. He wrote a report for the Council of Foreign Relations, and this is what he wrote. He said, the administration should also reconsider measures that have created new obstacles for many foreign students and foreign workers on temporary work visas, such as the H-1B. Allowing companies to bring talented employees to the United States reduces the incentive to move research and other corporate activities offshore. Steps should also be taken to link immigration more directly with U.S. labor market challenges. Just really quickly, undisclosed at that time, Engler had actually been hired by NASSCOM.
Oh, come on.
Who, by the way, of course, receive support from the government. So it's sort of like a USAID, only with USAID, sorry, but with India. But let me ask you this question. Why? We need to bring in more H-1Bs. Why? Well, it reduces the incentive to move research. And hold on a second. You believe that research and corporate activities are more effective or higher quality in India? So in other words, you're threatening us. Oh, well, companies are just going to move to cheap labor over there where you have 18 families living in a house working for pennies on the dollar. So you better bring that third world here. That's what you need to do. That's the solution. Well, how about we cord them off and start focusing on our own people? What was that, John?
Yeah, the point of the research and wanting the research and for the manufacturing to be in the United States is to employ American workers. That's the whole point. Yeah. It's against the point to just bring foreign workers to do it.
Right. Why would
you might as well just send them there.
Why would we want to increase revenue for India so they can buy Russian oil and weapons? Think about that.
Yes.
So, and here's the thing, it's worse than that. So nonprofits like Gaddy, it's the Global Access to Talent from India. They also work very actively to install middle management abroad. And for people who don't know, it's effectively kind of like these headhunting agencies, these placement agencies, and a lot of them skim money off the top. So basically, they install people here in the United States. They get a kickback, and then you get a bunch of Indians who are living in one house who end up taking over your neighborhood and ghettoizing it. And that's what I mean, turning it into little India. And that means it's dirtier. That means people are less friendly. That means there's less sense of community. That means they bring a lot of their cheating, lying, stealing. And I do mean that's the norm in India. Now, this doesn't mean that it's because their skin is brown. It's because of the culture in India. And these people are not even 1 or 2 generations removed. They're coming from a scam artist culture right here. According to Gaddy's site, they write, focused on creating enabling ecosystem for overseas employment from India. We aim to shift the global talent mobility discourse from illegal to legal, migration to mobility, and citizenship to work.
Ooh, citizenship to work.
Yeah, well, here's India's foreign affairs minister speaking at the launch of Gaddy in May.
There are currently roughly about 34 million Indians and PIOs living and working abroad. About half of them, again, that's a very approximate figure, half of them are our citizens. Perhaps a third are located in the Gulf, and the rest of them are spread across other geographies, mostly developed economies. However, given the trends that I spoke about, the possibility of expanding that, even in the near term, is very serious. Bear in mind that we Indians have also developed by now a strong history of employment exploration. These are not hypothetical possibilities or even prospects that are somewhere on the horizon. The need for talent abroad is a situation that is actually upon us today.
Okay, a couple of things. Let me ask you a few questions here, and then I want to compare it to, brain drain that has taken place in the past. If this is true and there's so much talent in India, why does India look like India? Why do people in India live like Indians? Genuine question. So if you have the most talented, if you have the brightest among us, why wouldn't you want to keep them in India to improve your country? For example, if we look at what happened after World War II and bringing in some of their engineers, we had to fight for that. And there was a long process because, of course, and even during the Cold War, Germans, right? They wanted to keep them there. They wanted to keep their best and brightest to have a competitive edge. Same thing with the Russians, right? They wanted to keep the space race. They weren't trying to send all of their workers somewhere else. Here's why. India knows they're not the best and the brightest. And India makes more money, here's their play, by having people come work in the United States through this entire sort of Ponzi scheme that they run and sending money back to India. That's a better play than them actually creating a livable country for their own people. They have no intentions of doing that. That is not what a growing, developing nation does. Let's send all of our best and brightest away. Well, why don't you have opportunities there? If you're this growing economy, and they are these brilliant engineers, they are these brilliant coders, wouldn't you want them there so that they can bring you into the first world economically? No. The play is to send them here, take your job, because they know that they can work for less and send money back home. How does that benefit anyone in the United States? And again, the government policy is purchasing from and engaging in trade with our enemies. Now, this is something that people have been warning against for quite a long time, of course, everyone here included. And surprising to you, Vivek, in October 2024.
A lot of the people who have come here through the H-1B system would tell you, as I would, that it is just a broken system no matter who you're seeking to serve. My general approach is when something's broken in government, you can't really fix it when it's lasted that long. You need to shut it down, start with a blank slate, and rebuild from scratch. And that's just a stylistic point that I've applied to this issue as to any other.
Well, that's great. He seems to, until 2 months later in December 2024, when he said the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college. It starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Well, you know what? I agree that celebrating mediocrity and everyone gets a trophy, that doesn't necessarily breed the most competitive. I understand that. But I don't agree with the idea that they do that in India. You know what they celebrate in India? Getting ahead at all costs. Whether it's honest or fraudulent. People will say this is racist. Anyone out there run a company and have to do business with a lot of recent Indian immigrants? Comment. They start haggling after you've signed the contract. And I'll tell you where that stems, where that comes from. It comes from silly religions that aren't real, and I mean that. Hinduism, Buddhism in many cases, but in India, let's go with Hinduism, where it's all situational ethics. Hey, why would you fear accountability if the only accountability is how you feel? You do bad, well, you're in your own hell. You're further away from nirvana. And you go, wait a second, that's all there is? I feel great, and I have more money in my pocket. Because even though I lied, I got the money from that guy. He has less and I have more. It's a fundamental problem with the religion, and it's why Western Christendom is different. It's why you are watching this from your smart tablet, and people in India, most of them, are literally pooping wherever their defecation may fall. So if you believe that they're the best and the brightest, okay, let me present to you another wrinkle here. The degree mills in India. And these are just the ones that we know of. So the degree mills, by the way, to give you an idea, they sold more than 36,000. They were caught fake degrees for would-be H-1B beneficiaries. So we caught 36,000 completely fake degrees.
Jeez.
And combine that with the fact that less than 2% of H-1Bs are checked for compliance on an annual basis. Oh, okay. So maybe it's not the best and the brightest. I'm sure there are some. It's a huge country. But maybe the majority of them are the kind of Indian immigrants here on H-1Bs who send their money back home, and working with them as an exercise in frustration. Maybe it's because it's based on fraud. You know, like our alliance.
And shouldn't there be some kind of a, I don't know, sense of gratitude? Do you know why India is even the India of today, even with all the fake stuff that's going on?
Colonialism.
They have a tech.
Shiva?
No. The reason they have a tech industry is because we wired it. We wired it. Mm-hmm. And then we started shipping our programming jobs overseas because we could do it over there for $25 an hour and charge $100 an hour here in the United States. And then they started to develop. This has happened over and over and over. We build the country's economy because we want access to labor. We want access to produce goods, whether it's right or wrong. And then they take advantage of us and start dictating the terms.
Yeah.
And every single president, whether it's China or India or Mexico or Canada or any other country that we've dealt with, every other president has just said, okay, well, don't hurt us too much. Right. Okay, well, take advantage of us, but don't kill us.
Right.
Every other president until Donald Trump, who said, I kind of like India in a lot of ways, but these guys are screwing us right now.
Yep.
That's fair. It's absolutely fair. Rebalancing this stuff must happen.
Yeah. Free market, free enterprise, and our constitutional rights can only exist with a just and moral people. That's what the Founding Fathers said. I'm sorry, that means the basis has to be Western Christendom. Let me give you one example, just to show you that it's different. Not all cultures are equal. And I do mean morally. I do mean that morally, India as a country is inferior to the United States. Just to be clear, I want to put a very fine point on it. Morally, India is a reprehensible place in comparison to the United States. Just look at IP laws with China and India. In other words, Indians are more likely to come here if they want to innovate anything, hoping that they're protected by our laws here. They don't even take it into account. Why would you create anything? Why would you strive in India when the next person who's put in none of the work is simply going to rip it off? That's a constant problem that we have.
Yeah.
Someone creates something, and let's say they even have a patent. Let's say they own the intellectual property, the copyright. Guess what? It's going to be ripped off. Asia, India, that's a big problem with Amazon, right? Where you can't even find the original product. Think about that. It's how they make their bones. They don't innovate. They don't contribute. They take and then fleece. And by they, I mean nations like India and China. As a whole, I'm making a generalization that they're morally inferior to the United States, and that does not mean that we are without fault. Which brings us to key fact. I don't know how you say it in Hindi. I'll just say trace because Spanish is sort of a catch-all for not English. They're also working with China, which may surprise people, to subvert and to bypass tariffs in the United States. So 23 to 24, India's economic survey actually supported the idea of allowing Chinese companies to start factories in India and to allow India effectively to be a portal so that Chinese companies, which of course means run or in part owned by the Communist Chinese Party, so that they could avoid tariffs. So this comes from that survey. It says, as the U.S. and Europe shift their immediate sourcing away from China, it is more effective to have Chinese companies invest in India and then export the products to these markets rather than importing from China, adding minimal value and then re-exporting them. So it's that seems right there. You're reading like it seems like they're trying to avoid tariffs, but all right, that would suck. But have we seen any damage in practice? Yep. Look no further than professional gay Tim Cook, where here's a headline, right? A majority of U.S. sold iPhones are made in India.
Hey, there you go.
Which is exempt from some of the tariffs because China was hardest hit. Then you see the truth that a majority of the what they call FATP, the final assembly, test, and pack, is done in India, sure, but most of those components are still sourced from places like China. Apple's been using India to avoid a tariff. Apple's been using India, a nation purchasing weapons and oil from one of the free world's greatest enemies, if you were to hear the left say it, and I also am not a fan of Russia. They have been using this nation who claims to be an ally so that our absolutely sworn enemy, China, can backdoor in. Think about that for a second, and then saying we are an ally. And I know that everyone in India who liked that I said, hey, Modi's doing some good stuff because Indians have this displaced, I don't know, source of national pride, which they shouldn't. It's not a nation to be proud of. I'm sorry. And you know what I mean? Objectively, it's not a nation to be proud of because you're poor, your country's filthy, you create nothing, you contribute nothing, and the rest of the world is tired of you scamming them. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but every time we pick up our phone and there's some scam artist saying they're putting a lock to keep my credit card safe or asking an old lady to uninstall some virus software in a computer so she has to hand over her social security number, without fail, it's the voice of an Indian who claims his name is Harold from Schenectady. So how do we deal with them? How do we deal with nations like India? Well, we can increase tariffs. We can send home H-1Bs. We can put a 100% tax on any money that is being sent out of this country who is working here on an H-1B. And we can send in their natural predator, the trains. Toot, toot. Still funny.
If you want it, research did send in a 1-minute video they thought you'd want to react to on the subject, but that's up to you.
I think that's fine.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, one of my greatest mysteries in life is white people and their obsession with traveling on a budget to India. Like, India is quite cheap to travel as it is. It's not that expensive to get around or to go to really good restaurants or to do touristy things. But white people are adamant on going in the most unsanitary trains and buses and living worse than the way underprivileged people in India live. And then they want to shoot it and post it and talk about how pathetic India is. They've clearly had about 200 years of looting our wealth and our resources and our gold. So, like, what did you guys do with it? You could have invested it and lived a much better life. But no, now you want to come back to India and then film and post the consequences of the actions of your ancestors. Now, before someone comments and says, oh, they're just trying to shed light on the living conditions of India and all of that stuff. No, there are very respectful ways of doing that.
Yeah, we're not
stayed in
trying
India
to be
for
respectful.
7 days with like 5 rupees for what? Like, why are you suffering like that? But okay, it doesn't matter. But the consequences of it is the racism and the stereotypes that we face, which we have to deal with from online bullies. Like, it is so annoying. Man, white people are so problematic. I really think they need to go for one VFS appointment, and that will actually straighten these idiots.
Yeah, idiots. Here's the thing. You want to hear, you think what we've said is racist? That woman who comes from a caste system, ask her about the poor neighborhood around her, what she thinks of those Indians.
Well, she's mad that we're going there.
Yeah.
No, don't show the shitty people.
Right, exactly.
We have lots of shitty people. We hate them too.
We're different from them by birthright. Okay? That's a caste system. I was born better. They were born there. That's why we don't help them. That's also the thing, too. There is no class mobility in India. For as much as they bitch about the income inequality here. Well, yeah, and it's a problem if that's, by the way, exacerbated by government policy like COVID. I don't have as big of a problem with inequality in income as I do poverty. And in India, it's poverty. And you know what they do to help those people in poverty? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing,
also,
because it's seen as a birthright. You're born poor, you stay poor. You're born wealthy, oh, well, that's just, it's the bloodline.
She wants to scream racism, and she's just saying, white people this, white people that, white people, bitch, I'm not British.
I know.
I don't like them very much.
No.
I don't like their government very. I don't like the monarchy. They still have one. They have a friggin' palace.
Yeah.
We're not the same. We're not the people that colonized India.
No.
Yeah, they would be
not
better
my
off
ancestors.
If the colonizers had stayed, they'd probably be a little bit better off in some ways.
Well, she made a good point. There is a good point how much of blame of India's problems are on the United Kingdom and colonizing them and then separating them with them impact. How much is on them? I don't know. I'm not one to say, but I'm not going to blame them for everything. It's been, 60, 70 years?
Yeah, well, you could also argue that they were brought in. They were actually advanced far more rapidly because of colonization.
There's also that too. But
they did, and she's not blaming colonization necessarily.
She's blaming white people.
She's blaming
white people.
Blaming Americans for bringing industry over.
100% blaming Americans,
look,
which is like, you don't even know your own history.
Go there and take advantage of people all the time. But if you want to blame anybody, fine. Maybe put some of the blame on the people that took advantage of the situation. I agree. Fine. Companies sometimes suck. What about your leadership that signed off on it and got paid under the table?
Yep.
Is there any responsibility to take care of your own citizens like we're talking about doing here? Is there any of that in your mind right now? Do you understand that without us running a cable overseas to kind of wire you guys to the internet and the rest of the world, that you guys would not exist as the country you are today?
I'll tell you what the answer is.
You probably don't know that.
What a mistake.
I will tell you what the answer. I will tell you what the answer is, and they don't want it. They would never accept this. It's, hey, guys, well, people are getting away with crime. No, we're going to change this. Why? Due process? Why? Jesus. Why that punishment for that crime? Jesus. Why the tax? Jesus. Why the marriage laws? Jesus. Why the business laws? Jesus. We view it this way because of our Christian worldview.
Yes.
You can't just screw the person next to you. There are going to be punishments for people who take money under the table. And we're going to have a legal process that reflects punishment that is commensurate with the crime because Christianity, Hinduism is a failed religion. Your country is no better off. You've been doing it for a very long time. That isn't going to be a thing anymore. Oh, you're still here? And you're still watching this on YouTube? You've probably noticed something is missing by now. I'm not here. That's because the Live Daily Show is now streaming exclusively on Rumble weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tune in there, where nothing is censored.